I'm Shubhrata. Uh, I'm Shubhrata Dey, PhD student in Astronomical Observatory of Jagiellonian University. So we are waiting for viewers. Maybe after 2 minutes we can start. How many? 10. Okay, so maybe we can just begin. So hello everyone. So this talk is presented on behalf of Night Under the Star. So it's a group of international PhD students. We are international PhD students from Ukraine, India, America, and we conduct this weekly popularization talk where we talk about various topics, like in astronomy, of course, from galaxy to maybe stars, then universe, cosmology, etc. So today I will be talking about something very interesting, the first light of universe. And before that, I would like to show how exactly we conduct our our events. So basically it consists of first we present a talk which can, as I said, on various topics. Here you can see in one of the photos. Then we conduct tour around the observatory. Our observatory is exceptionally beautiful, so I will show you a panoramic view of our observatory. And then we have, in the tour we talk about the different telescopes that we have in our observatories and the history of our observatory. And then if the sky permits, if there are no clouds or anything, we even make observations. And we do this observation, in observations we could view moon, planets like Jupiter, Saturn. We observe even cluster like nebulas, etc. So that's our main agenda of our popularization talk that we conduct now weekly, and before it was monthly. So before that, I think I will show you how exactly our observatory looks. So if you can see, this is the panoramic view of our observatory. So there are a few optical telescopes and here, and 2 radio telescopes. If you can see, one here and one very small over here. So this is Grubb. If you can see, one of the oldest telescope. One second, we will just enter Grubb. Yeah, exactly. So this is the oldest telescope we have in our observatory. It's like the old book which everyone wants to cherish always and keeps it very, very safe and very like admires it always. So it was brought to our observatory by one of our director, Dr. Tadeusz Banhewicz. So in early 20th century, and you can see it's a refractor type telescope over here, and very old, and it has no electrical system. Everything is mechanical. So it was used to observe basically in olden days the moon and some nebulas, etc. So let's go back. And this is, okay, 1 second. Now we move to Maksutov. This is the telescope using which we make our observations. And all the observations, this is a reflector type telescope, and you can see here. So this is, I guess, 25 centimeter the diameter, and oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is. So I think we have already shared the link, and you can go back and view all the interesting telescopes that we have in our observatory. And I think it's time we can begin with our talk. Yeah. 1 second. So yeah, the first life of our universe. Me, Shubhrata Dey, I am a PhD student in Jagiellonian University. I'm a 3rd year student. I basically work on galaxies which are high in infrared luminosity, which have lot of dust, and I study the properties of those type of galaxy. But today I'm not talking about galaxies. Today I'll be talking about cosmology, and maybe it's something which is very basic for our livelihood now, like how we came into existence. And maybe even though it's not my PhD topic, it's something which has always fascinated me, and I have always thought about it. So I thought I would really like to share what I know about it. And if you have any questions, any doubts, I know it's not an interactive session, so please comment. Please comment whatever doubts you have. If I am not able to answer, maybe I might not be able to answer, I will make sure that we reply to you in time, in some time, definitely. So just to begin with, this is the night sky of Krakow, Poland, that we took, that we could observe using stellarium. Yes, of course, because otherwise the sky is not this clear. And what do you see in a night sky? When you look up, you might see some stars, you might see some constellation, you might see moon, you might see, definitely you will see moon. You might see, if you're lucky enough, you might see now from Poland, you can see a duo of Jupiter and Saturn always together. So you can see a lot of such objects. If you are in a much more better place, maybe where the light pollution is less. By light pollution, I mean if there is, not much light in affecting the sky from the city. So if you go maybe a little higher in altitude, you might get a much better view of our sky, right? So you might even see a beautiful Milky Way, where here you can see, a thin patch of our galaxy, our Milky Way, our home galaxy, where we reside as a part of solar system. Now, let's say I remove everything. I remove all the galaxies, I remove all the stars, I remove everything that, even the Milky Way, everything that we see in the sky. What will you see up? Like nothing, right? Like the screen that you are seeing in your laptop, right? Laptop or computer. This is what you will see. Absolutely nothing, right? So what I do now, I take a radio dish maybe, and I point in one direction of the sky. Technically, I should not get anything, right? Nothing. Like it should be absolutely null. We won't get anything, and no noise, no background, nothing, because there is no galaxy, there is no star. There is nothing that will give us information, or there is nothing that will give us any signal, right? But what we actually see is a static. The zzzz sound, you remember? Having it in your radios or in your television when you were shifting between one channel to another, in between the two channels, right? So now, okay, I saw this in one direction. What if I put my telescope and direct it in all the direction possible for me, in all the direction of the sky? I am still observing static. I am not observing anything like blank signals or nothing. I am just observing again some background noise, which my radio dish is still capturing, right? So in all the direction. Also, as I already mentioned, you remember the olden analog TV, so you had to twist the knob, and as you're twisting between the channel, as you're turning between the channels, in between two channel, again you will get some static, the sound, and it's like so annoying and everything. So we always think that this noise is maybe, because our television is not able to get any proper signals from the sky, proper signals from the TV station. Or maybe this is some nearby radio station or anything which might be interfering in between. Or maybe something which, some static, some noise which belongs to our earth. But you will be astonished to know that in this, 1% of the noise belongs to the cosmos. It comes from the cosmos, and in whatever direction you keep your antennas, you will get this background noise. Guys, who is sending these signals? Like, isn't that a question to ask? Do you have any idea who is sending this signal? Can you please comment in the comment box? What do you think? Who is sending these signals? I will wait for some time for your answer. No replies are coming. It's making me sad. Guys, reply. Come on. Who is sending these signals? Okay. Somebody, Rahul answered a very smart answer. I did not expect this, Rahul. Yeah, I got what I expected. Anita answered aliens. Okay. Rajiv Mamu answered satellites. Okay, okay, aliens, aliens. Let's have some drama. It's aliens. Maybe the aliens are sending us these signals. No, these are never aliens. Till now, we have not detected any signals that are coming from the aliens. Yet, we are trying our best. These signals are the background noise. So in the television or in wherever you watch, these are the you are watching the oldest radiation, the radiation from our history of universe. So these radiations are called cosmic microwave background. So we will discuss about what cosmic microwave background is exactly is. So it's basically, it describes the condition of our early universe. Our early universe, even before we, the galaxies, the stars, anything came into existence. These are the radiations that came from then, from the beginning. So have you all heard about some model which describes the origin of our universe? Like some famous model which, you know, we always hear in any astronomy or cosmology popularization talks or anything. Like, can you comment what is that model, the name of the model? What is the model? What is that, the two words? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Gauri Shankar replied, Big Bang. Anita replied, Hubble. Night Under the Star replied, the hot Big Bang model. Yes, yes, yes. Helen Pius, my dear best friend, replied Big Bang. Suresh Uncle replied Big Bang. Yes, absolutely. It's the Big Bang model. The model which, you know, which has been proved quite well till now about the observable universe, the existence of our observable universe, which says that we originated from a point and there was a huge explosion. And from the explosion, the universe has been expanding ever since then. And after that is what we are now. So from the Big Bang till now, it took us 13.7 billion years to what we are now, what we see as ourselves now. So okay, fine. Now, to understand this in a much better way, what exactly is the background radiation or cosmic microwave background radiation? Let's go, you know, probably 1 second, around 1 second after the Big Bang took place. That is, we go back 13.7 billion years ago, and from there 1 second after the Big Bang took place. This epoch or this period is called the inflation period. After the Big Bang took place, the universe expanded e to the power 60 times. There was a huge expansion, and even after expanding e to the 60th power time, it could only come into a size of, probably, as they say in the popular science, into the size of an orange. So that's how our universe was. And this universe was extremely dense in hot matter, like extremely dense, and was at very high temperature, like very hot. And this is called the soup. In common language, we call it the soup of the universe. And this soup had a temperature of billion degrees Celsius, which is about, you know, million times the temperature of a solar surface. Now, guys, now sitting here, even in Krakow, when we discuss, oh, it's so hot, like in India or different places, even with a little temperature high, we are like, it is so hot and it's unable to sustain. So imagine the solar surface where we might just get burned off even before reaching the sun. And now imagine the universe, which is million times more hotter than the solar surface, right? So you can imagine how hot the early universe was and how dense the early universe was. This density was full of charged particles, or we call it plasma, the hot plasma. Now, this soup, as I was describing before, is called the photon baryon fluid. Now, from the name also, you can guess, okay, it consists of photons, it consists of baryons, and it consists of electrons, dash of electrons, right? So, guys, whenever there is light, there will be photon. And photons, let's explain photon a bit. Photons are the energy carrier of light. So when it travels in the form of waves. So whenever there will be light, there will be photon. There are photons. Now inside room, inside your room, inside outside, everywhere there are photons. There are these energy packets, the packets which are carrying energy and moving in the form of waves. So photon travels in the form of waves. Now these photons, when the wavelength is short, by wavelength I mean here the distance. If you can see my cursor, okay, wait, let me put a pointer. Okay, if you can see my pointer here, the distance between the two waves is short. So when the distance between the two peak of the wave is short, it carries very high energy, as the boy here, it's running with a very high energy. And when the distance between the two peak is very less, it carries low energy. So you can see a tired photon, right? So as the wavelength stretches, as the wave stretches more and more, it will carry low energy. Okay, so some basics have been understood. Now we will talk a little bit about the baryon, because we already explained the photon. Great. So, okay, I will just caption, maybe I'll switch it off because I would explain. Okay. So baryon basically consists of proton and a neutron. So you would have studied in your elementary school that the proton and neutron together form the building block from the nucleus. And nucleus together forms the atom. Nucleus with an electron orbiting around it forms an atom. Now these atoms forms the building block of a fundamental building block of a matter. So guys, what is the simplest atom known to us that exists in the universe? Can you please comment? What is the simplest atom that we know? The most basic atom with just maybe a proton and an electron. What is the name of that atom? Okay, so just now I got a comment by Rajiv Panja, Mamu, that what is baryon. So maybe we can discuss. Baryon is basically a name which consists of a proton and then a proton and a nucleus. So I will maybe go back a bit and explain here again. Proton and a neutron. So whenever we talk about an atom that we are made of, the matter, consist of matter, we are made of matter, and matter is made of atoms. Now atom is the smallest of the building block of us, and these atoms consist of protons and neutrons, which is the nucleus, the center, and surrounding it is orbiting surrounding is orbiting an electron, which together forms an atom. So like, did anyone reply? Because with that I can explain. Oh, we got lot of replies. Yes, hydrogen. Hydrogen is the simplest atom. So maybe I can take the example of hydrogen and explain what an atom is. So here you can see at the center there is a purple color, some block, which is the nucleus, and surrounding is the electron, which is revolving around the nucleus, and it is the basic fundamental quantity that makes an atom, and that atom makes us matter. So just the nucleus, the proton and the nucleus together is called baryon, and the electron surrounding is called an atom. The whole thing together is called an atom. So as everyone replied, of course, hydrogen is the most basic atom existing in our universe, is the fundamental, and it's abundant that you will find it anywhere and everywhere. Okay, oh, 1 second. I'm sorry, this is little troublesome with this video. I'll just play it again because it's an important concept here. Again, as it's replaying, sorry. So here you can see the electron is revolving around the nucleus, forming the simplest atom. The simplest atom that we know till now is an hydrogen. And what is an hydro? And hydrogen is like the basic model. Now in our hot universe, the photon. So you saw what happened now. In our hot, dense early universe, the universe is so dense, the photons have so much energy that it doesn't allow the nucleus to stay with the electron. It doesn't allow the electron and a nucleus to stay together, or a proton and an electron to stay together and form an hydrogen. And it just comes and blasts off the atom, and then they separate. The electron and nucleus cannot stay together. What another interesting fact that happened is when it, so here if you can see the yellow ones, I will consider them as a photon, and the surrounding one, surrounding elements, we will consider them as the electron or the new atom. So the electron and the, so the photon just strikes the hydrogen atom, doesn't allow them to stay together. They go away, and the photon keeps on bouncing off on these electrons. Like they just hit and bounces off, hit and bounces off, and they are not able to move outward of this soup. They are not able to move forward of this soup. So they just get trapped. And we have to understand that at this point our universe is opaque. That nothing, so the light is not able to pass by. What do I mean by opaque? That when I cover, let's say when I am keeping a black sheet in front of me, I cannot see something beyond the black sheet, right? Because light is not able to come from that part of the place to me, because something in between is stopping the light to move. So that's what is happening here. That light is getting, the photons are getting stuck in between these baryon and baryon soup, and it's not able to travel further away. Universe is very opaque, an important point to think about again. So now let's fast forward after 380,000 years after the Big Bang. Now, so here we have to keep in head that from the beginning till now the universe is expanding, okay? So universe has kept on expanding, even now universe is expanding. Just now the temperature is being able to reduce now, because then it was too dense and now the density has reduced. So now the temperature is slowly reducing, and now the temperature is around 300 degrees Celsius. Now 300 degrees Celsius is half the sun's surface temperature. So you can understand, from a millionth times sun's temperature, sorry, oh sorry, 3000, I'm sorry, I'm doing some mistakes, sorry, from the 3000. So from the millionth degree, from the millionth times the solar temperature, now it has reduced to 3000 degrees Celsius, the half the sun's temperature. So how much, from million to half the solar temperature, how much the universe has cooled down now. So what happens? Now also, as I said before, you have to keep in head that the universe is expanding now. So okay, now here you can see some runners, right? Runners, on the track. We will give an analogy of a runner equivalent to a photon. Now in the hot dense universe, the photons, it was the beginning. The photon had lot of energy, like the runners. The runners, when they start running on the track, they have so much energy, right? They are like running and like they are very energetic. They can move very fast, etc. Now they have to reach a final point. What I do, I become very mean and I try to move the final point farther and farther away. That I keep them, so I make the runner run more and more and more. Okay, so their runners are running more and more. So what will happen? The more they run, the more they will become tired and they will lose their energy, right? So there will be a point come when they will all be, shredded out and they will just lie down. Like they are so less, they have so less energy, right? If after they run so long. Similar thing happens to our photon. What happens to our photon? Photons, when they begin their journey from the Big Bang, they have lot of energy. Now, as the universe is expanding, the photons has to go travel more and more and more distance. So the wavelength starts increasing. And you remember before I told that as the wavelength increases, the photon loses its energy. That's what is happening. Now the photon has lost its energy and it becomes less energetic. So here I would like to show you what exactly happens. Now this is an electromagnetic wave. Like we know our photon travels as a wave. So from a gamma ray, which is extremely energetic, to X-ray, to ultraviolet, here the wavelength is small. That is, the distance between them is very small. They are very highly energetic. Now as the universe expanded, the wavelength started increasing and the energy decreasing. So microwave, yes, the microwave that we use in our home is the similar energy that is what we are talking about. Same, the microwave radiations have very low energy. And that is what we are observing now, the cosmic microwave background. Now, when the photons have very less energy, so now you remember before I showed you that the photons is coming and not letting hydrogen to stay together. It's blasting the electron off and the electron is not able to stay with proton. But now since it has so less energy, it is not able to disturb the electron much. Now electron and proton can stay in peace. Rest in peace. An electron with proton forms the hydrogen, the basic element of our universe that we, the nature, everything is made of. Besides hydrogen, as the time passes, since the energy of the photon is reducing, we start having more and more elements like helium, lithium, etc., which I will again remind you is the building block of us. Like we are made of hydrogen atoms. Like our whole universe is made of hydrogen atom, and this whole concept is literally mind-blowing, that from the things that we see such early in the universe is what we are made of. So now this is the map of cosmic microwave background. This is the map taken by Planck Legacy. Planck was a space mission, which I'll talk in some time. Planck was a space mission, began in 2013 when it first gave the map of our universe. And this is the map of our cosmic microwave background, the storyteller of our early universe. So till now I have given you the science. I hope you are understanding. If you are not understanding, I'll be really glad if you put in the comment what are your thoughts, what you did not understand. If I'm not able to tell you now, I will definitely try to comment it out so that I do justice to your question. Now, how did we detect this cosmic microwave background? So there's a very interesting story. I have named this story as Pigeon Poop and the Discovery of the CMB, because that's how it took. That's how it was by mistake that they were observing something else which did not sound right, and it turned out to be the energy of our universe, early universe, the cosmic microwave background. So these are the two guys, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, and I think we can hear from the discoverers themselves what are their thoughts about this thing, about CMB, and how did they detect. So okay, I will just show.
Discovered this critical moment in the story of the universe was Arno Penzias. 1963. 30-year-old Penzias and his 27-year-old colleague Robert Wilson began work on a new antenna in New Jersey. Initially, they were only studying cosmic radio waves, but they would stumble on one of the greatest discoveries of all time. As they started to test their equipment, they detected an unexpected background noise.
It was additional signal, and it appeared to be coming from the sky. We eliminated very carefully the ground, even the solar system, because we did this winter to summer, seasonal variation, man-made sources of equipment. All these things were eliminated.
In desperation, the two scientists began to wonder whether the strange signal might have another more earthly origin. They found there were pigeons roosting in the antenna, and it was covered with droppings. They wondered if the pigeons were the source of the strange signal. There was only one solution. The droppings and the pigeons would have to go.
We finally got around to removing the pigeon droppings. We also had to remove the pigeons. That was a difficult problem because they turned out to want to come back, and we mailed them off to another site.
But even with the troublesome pigeons gone, the mysterious signal would not disappear.
And so we were left with the almost inescapable conclusion that this radiation was coming from the sky. I could not account for it.
The strange signal detected by Penzias and Wilson would turn out to be one of the most important scientific discoveries of all time. But the explanation for their mystery background noise starts not with sound.
I will just move a little forward because they will explain what I have been explaining till now. So a little bit further. Yeah, this is the perfect point.
Moments.
Over time, this burst of light dimmed and cooled and became microwave radiation. It was this faint 13-billion-year-old microwave signal that Penzias and Wilson picked up on their antenna. What they heard was the quiet echo of the moment the universe formed the first atoms.
It's really the light from the origin of the universe. You get an old FM receiver. You tune between channels, turn the knob, and it doesn't capture it and pop to a station. You get to a part where there's none. You hear a... That's what we call noise. If you have a good radio set, 0.5% of that is actually the sound of the Big Bang.
And we can also see the moment when the first elements were created.
Yes, so you already saw. You saw the beautiful explanation and how what they thought was just a background radiation or some noise from the nearby military base or something turned out to be one of the biggest discovery in understanding how our universe, maybe we can say how biggest explanation of how our universe came into origin. Probably one of the theory and one of the greatest explanation how it took place. So moving forward. Okay, okay, so for this discovery, Arnos and Wilson and Penzias were given in 1974 Nobel Prize, and because it is one of the greatest discovery in cosmology, and from then lots and lots of research has been happening further and further to understand more about the origin of the universe. Okay, so yeah. So now from Arnos and Penzias's discovery, Penzias and Wilson's discovery, from then lot of different satellites and expeditions has been taken place, and like balloon-borne satellites or something. But COBE, WMAP, and Planck are the triple major satellites which were dedicated to the study of cosmic microwave background, and it gave us the map of how the cosmic microwave background is. So you can see as the time passed by, from a smooth map to a little more grainy map to a much more grainy map. So what exactly is happening here is, okay, before this I will come to this point. So do you guys know what is the temperature of the universe at current? So we discussed from billions of degree to maybe 3000 degrees Celsius to now at this point of time, what is the temperature of our universe? Can you please comment it? So, okay, Kobe, WMAP and the Planck are the satellites that are here that were launched in 1992, 2003 and 2013 for dedicated to the study of cosmic microwave background. I'm sorry for not mentioning it before. So I'm getting replies. Arshia Anis Ahmed said 2.7 degree Kelvin, 7 Kelvin, which is true. It's 2.73 Kelvin above absolute zero. Archana replied 273. Oh, it's too much. Achu, it's 2.7 Kelvin. No, Arshia, you were right. It is 2.73. Yes, we can discuss. So that is the number is 2.73 Kelvin. You are right. But the interesting fact is now, let's take, to simplify it, I take a thermometer and wherever I'll point in the space, I measure the temperature of the space, it is gonna be 2.73 degree Kelvin. Everywhere, the microwave, and this temperature is because of the cosmic microwave background photons, which are the radiations which are heating the space. These radiations are increasing the temperature are causing the temperature of our universe to be around 2.73 Kelvin. Now, if we say it's 2.73 Kelvin, it's uniform everywhere. So you can see on the Kobe map, maybe here, yeah, in the Kobe map, it's uniform more or less everywhere, right? So what are these grainy structures that I am seeing here, right? It's a question you might ask, right? So even though the temperature is uniform everywhere, our satellites are so accurate, so much evolved in time that they could measure the difference in the temperature. So the points that you see as the blue and the red are the hot and the cold region in the sky, where the temperature is 2.73 degree Kelvin plus or minus 0.0005 Kelvin. Like it is 10 to the power minus 5 is the difference that we see here. So where the blue is, it is colder by 10 to the power minus 5 and where Kelvin, and where it is hotter, it's hotter by 10 to the power minus 5. So you can understand that our telescopes have become so efficient and so much scientifically evolved that they could detect the difference in the temperature to such a precision. Okay, and this temperature difference is the deviation from the normal temperature from 2.73 is vital for our existence. I know it might sound little dramatic that how could a 10 to the power minus 5 Kelvin could cause so much, difference in our existence. But these are the deviations without which the structures in the universe wouldn't have been formed. And from the structures, the galaxies and etc. were formed, and from where we came into existence. So these deviations are very important. And let me tell you that these deviations are not because of the atoms or molecules that were formed much later during the cosmic epoch, cosmic microwave background time. But these deviations took place much before, when the inflation started, when the first Big Bang happened. These deviations were already imprinted in the Big Bang that led after the Big Bang. I'm sorry, and let me rephrase. After the Big Bang, these deviations were imprinted after the Big Bang happened, and from then it has been propagating, and that led to the formation of us. Maybe this is little explained. I can discuss more if someone asks how exactly it happened, maybe later. So yeah, this is a very important point to mention, that the grainy structure that we see is the deviation from standard 2.73 Kelvin, and the deviation are the reasons that we exist till now. That's what the research has been going on, and how we perceive our existence. So now, as you saw in the previous slide, how with Kobe, WMAP, and how Planck, how our understanding of the cosmic microwave background improved. So I just want to talk a little bit about how these satellites exactly observe. or how do they take the radiation, how take the measurements. Now it is very important to understand that these so the radiations by Planck or WMAP, the radiations that we are trying to study are the radiations that is coming much beyond, before galaxies or planets or superclusters of galaxies or anything came into existence, right? So we have to remove all of this, then study the radiation in the background. So we have to remove all the foreground that we have of galaxy, etc., 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 and then take the radiation and then take the measurements, right? So here you see sun. Sun is major obstacle for us if we really want to study CMB, right? Because it has so much, it illuminates in such high energy that it will disturb our radiation. So when we are taking our measurements, all these things have to take into consideration. So here what you see is our sun, Earth's orbit around the sun, and the points that are mentioned as L1, L2, L3, L4. Okay, let me put the cursor. L3, L4, L5 as the basic point, as the stable point where a particle can stay stable. I mean, it will be stable in those points. Otherwise, it will be affected by the gravity. L2 is one of the best position because for a satellite to be launched in this position, because it can avoid all the background of solar. So it can avoid the solar radiation as much as possible and then take the measurements. So I will just show you how exactly such radiations, such measurements are done. So here, this is a Planck satellite by ESA, European Southern Observatory, Southern Agency. So you can see here how the observations are being done, right? Like it rotates in certain axes and trying to get the picture of our galaxy, of Milky Way. I'm sorry, of the microwave background. Okay, Rajiv Panja asked me what are the L1, L2, L3 points. I'll repeat, L1, L2, L3 Lagrangian points are in the space where the larger body can stay stable. Like it is, it will not get affected by the gravitation of the sun or gravitation of the earth or any other bodies surrounding. So, okay, when I am launching a satellite into the space, we have lot of obstacles. First, there is gravity which we have to escape. Earth's gravity itself is so high that it takes a lot of power to come out of it, and we should have some velocity called escape velocity. So with the escape velocity, I am able to come out of the as a satellite, I can come out of the planet, and then I have to go to a position in the space where I can stay stable and make my observation, because sun is so huge that it can have a humongous gravitational influence on me and it can pull me, right? Like, all the planets that are revolving around the sun is because of the gravitation, is because of sun's gravitation, right? And that is one of the major reason that we have such huge solar system, that sun exists and the planet exists around it. Similarly, for a satellite to stay stable, it has to go in a position where it can be in balance between the sun's gravitation and the earth's gravitation and the gravitation of other points. So the L1, L2, L3, L4 and L5 are the most stable position where a satellite can stay stable, like it's a balanced position between the gravity of the different object, and it can take its observation. So now what you saw in the video was the Planck at its L2 position. Oh, I'm sorry. Planck at its L2 position. Taking its revolving in its own axis to take the measurement. So what you see here at the center is the position of our Milky Way. So that Milky Way, after solar system, after sun, Milky Way is one of the major contributors of the radiation or the noise for me to observe the cosmic microwave radiation, right? So I have to put some tape, let's say, to obstruct, to stop those radiations from the Milky Way galaxy, our home galaxies, to interfere with my cosmic microwave radiations, right? So that's what it is. In the center, the red thing you see is our Milky Way galaxy, which has been, you know, covered, masked by some values, like completely. So guys, that's all I wanted to share my knowledge, whatever I am aware of. Please, if I have done any mistakes, please write it in the comment box. Please let me know. And if you have any questions, please write it. I am aware that there are some questions that are coming up, so I'll try to reply them. And yeah, thank you. So these are the credits. Okay, let me see the comments. Okay, Suresh Uncle asked, is L1, L2, L3, L4 are stable or assessed? Uncle, these are the stable points. Like any satellite or anything which are being launched, they are launched at those positions because it's more stable. So they are fixed. I mean, they are not variables. Then, okay. What is the other question? Any other questions? Okay, let me see. Okay. Somehow I cannot see any other problem, but I think Akik asked, I read before, about how do we know the time, about the absolute time of, you know, how much we have expanded, or from the Big Bang till now, what is the time? It's a fabulous question indeed, and that's what we are trying hard to detect more and more. Actually try to understand more and more, but a basic understanding that I can give is that we measure the expansion of the universe by looking at the galaxies that are moving away from each other. One of the example. So as the universe is expanding, we know that two galaxies, if we put it in a fabric and we put two galaxies, as we stretch the fabric, the galaxies will be moving away and away from each other, right? So if we know the rate of the expansion of universe, from that we can decide the time of expansion, from the time from when the expansion began, or the Big Bang began. I know it's a very crude explanation. I'm making it too simple and maybe even wrong. Probably I can write it in the comment box much more briefly what it is. So basically, one way to study the expansion, or how much time has passed by, is studying how far the galaxies are moving away from each other besides its own velocity. I know the next question might come that galaxy has its own velocity. Yes, it has its own velocity, and then it has its peculiar velocity, which can help us to understand how farther these galaxies are moving away from each other as the cosmic fabric is expanding. Okay. Any other question? Cool. Fine. Then fine. Please put your comments. Please put your thoughts about the talk. If you want us to improve, or you want it to be more interactive, or anything, please subscribe to our Facebook page, Night Under the Stars, to get much more notification of our interesting talks, because we carry out these talks every week now after the pandemic, since the pandemic began, because we want to stay in touch. And this is, besides our PhD life, we really enjoy doing something like this. So please subscribe and be updated about the next coming talks. Thank you.